Good morning, folks. Good morning on this gloomy Labor Day. I hope the weather didn't ruin any of your cookout plans. I hope. So, we have a lot of announcements this morning, so you're going to have to bear with me. The first announcement is wonderful news from our ESL program here at Emerson. Last week, they had their registration, and they got so many students that they're at capacity. So they got as many students as they can handle. There were 71 new students and 26 returning students. Languages represented, native languages represented, were Spanish, mostly Spanish, 62 Spanish, 16 Russian, 4 Turkish, 4 Farsi, 4 Creole and French, 2 Portuguese, 2 Vietnamese, and 1 Hindi. So quite an arrangement of people coming here to Emerson to improve their lives. And when you apply for a grant, when you apply for help from people who give help, one of the things that they look for is how it multiplies. How, if I spend $1 on you, what is the economic benefit of spending $1 on your program? Imagine the economic benefit of spending $1 here at Emerson. That's 100 people speaking all these different languages who will be able to improve either their safety or their financial situation, their job situation. It is an absolutely wonderful gift that we are giving to the community, and it is a wonderful gift that we are receiving from the community to have all these folks here twice a week during the seasons when they're doing that. So we are absolutely tickled. That's a Southern word, but we are tickled that we have that many people participating in this program. It's absolutely wonderful. On the flip side of that, we had 3 of our volunteer teachers have to, for various reasons, and quite late in the process, beg off of teaching this year. So we are all of a sudden desperately looking for 3 teachers starting on Tuesday. This is now, okay? So if you have any experience, great. If you don't have experience, we have a course. I'm not saying it's easy, but you follow the course. And these are wonderful learners who want to be here. So our ESL coordinator is here today. Patty, would you stand up? Patty? First of all, thank you, Patty, for hitting capacity. That's wonderful. But I'm pointing out Patty because if you have an inkling that you might want to help teach these wonderful people their new language, please see Patty. She can put you at ease and make it easy for you to participate in our biggest social justice program, which we are absolutely thrilled about. On other good news, I got a letter this week with a donation to the church that specifically said that they were giving the donation because they love Artem. Where's Artem? Hiding in the corner. So we have the first official member of the Artem. We've also been pronouncing his name wrong. It's Artem. We have the first official member of the Artem fan club. Yes, there you go. Thank you very much. It's wonderful. We have a lunch bunch program here at Emerson where just voluntarily folks go out to lunch together and keep talking about what they heard or what's going on in their lives. Today we're going to Chipotle, which is at 5706 San Felipe. I don't know where that is. Is that in the... Corner Chimney Rock. Okay, Corner Chimney Rock and San Felipe. So we invite you to come with us if you want. That would be great. If you're hungry, that works. And then between then and now, between lunch and the end of the service, we will have coffee and conversation out in the gathering place, which we look forward to. And then lastly, if you are new around here, if you're still a little bit new around here, you should have gotten a visitor's packet on the way in. If you didn't, please ask us for a visitor's packet. And if you didn't get one, or maybe left it at home or whatever, and you want to get more involved here at Emerson, we would love to help you do that. There are the yellow cards that are being demonstrated right there. If you would fill in the yellow card, we will put you on our mailing list, and we promise to send you no more than 2 emails a week. You will not get 9,000 emails from us. We promise you that. And now, we invite you to relax, settle in, and we invite Artem, our newest rock star, to perform our prelude. Thank you.
Isn't this the sign for inaudible clapping? So I was doing my best, Artem. That did not mean cut it short. That did not mean that. Right. It's time for our chalice lighting at this point in our service. I'm Jill Rose. I think many of you know me. I've been a long-time volunteer here. As we gather in community, we look within ourselves and to each other for strength, restoration, and inspiration, so that as we journey together, we catch the spark of the eternal spirit, and from that spark, we light our chalice flame. Lighting the chalice flame symbolizes to all that the spirit of our congregation is strong, and that our will to transform ourselves and the world is also strong. We light the flame with gratitude. We light the flame in memory of all those who have gone before, and in honor of all who are here now, and with joy for all who are yet to come. Today, Mackenzie Prue will light our chalice here, and as she lights the chalice flame here in the sanctuary, I invite those of you joining from home to light a candle or a chalice of your own. Our chalice lighting words this month are from the Reverend Amy Carol Webb. Reverend Carol Webb is a songwriter, musician, and minister of the River of Grass UU congregation outside of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which he has served for the past 10 years. So please join me in reading these words together as they appear on your screen. We meet in the spaces between us, the apparent void teeming with the you and the I that overlap in this one sacred moment. As we work to create beloved community, we welcome all who would join us in building a better world with more love, more justice, and more peace. We welcome all who would join us in growing in heart and mind and spirit. We welcome all those who would join us in tearing down systems of oppression of all kinds. We welcome all who would join their purposes to ours in a loving spirit of right relationship. So please join me in our welcoming words, which are next on the screen. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here.
Last week, we started what I hope to be a new section of the service, and I'm going to announce it for a few weeks, and then I'm going to stop announcing it so that you know what it is. So we're going to have a UU History Minute from Richard Cummins. I got this idea, and I'm not ashamed to say that I totally stole this from Pat, who does our adult RE program. She starts the RE program with a moment in history. And what's interesting is that it comes from a book written by Frank Schulman, who was the minister here for 25 years back in the 80s. So we're going to install this into our service. So I invite Richard to come up and give us our This Week in UU History. And we chatted earlier, Richard and I chatted earlier. We tend to claim people as being UUs, but remember there weren't any UUs prior to the 60s. There was you and you, but there was no UU. So if somebody, was from the 18 whatevers, they were you or they were you, but they weren't UU. So Richard's going to be clear on that.
The week of August 26th to September 1st, I've selected a few of the many U or UU highlights. In 1826, the abolitionist George Frisbee Hoare was born in Concord, Massachusetts. He and his family had a long history of public service, and he entered Harvard College on his 16th birthday and graduated and then practiced law. He was a member of the Massachusetts House and Senate, and then the United States House of Representatives. He was an ardent Unitarian who attended church twice on Sundays. Don't get any ideas, Ed. He developed an increasing hatred of slavery and pushed the federal government for equal education. He also fought for women's rights and the rights of labor. Important because tomorrow is Labor Day. As a U.S. Senator, he chaired the National Unitarian Conference in 1899, and he died on September 30th, 1904. In 1809, Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. was born in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He was a noted physician and writer. He published many articles and poems. His poem, The Deacon's Masterpiece, was a satire on the collapse of Calvinism during its struggle with Unitarianism. He died in Boston on October 7, 1894. In 1784, Mary Austin Holly was born in New Haven, Connecticut. She was reared as Episcopalian and then became a Unitarian as an adult. She became governess to a wealthy family. She wrote many articles, and she also promoted independence from Mexico for Texas. And statehood was made official the year of her death, 1846. Her last years were spent in New Orleans. And finally, in 1837, transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson, our namesake, delivered his address, The American Scholar. That's often been called America's intellectual declaration of independence, and he delivered that to the Phi Beta Kappa Society at Harvard University. That was the week in U or UU history. Thank you. Reverend Ed?
Thank you, Richard. And it is now in our service when we hear words of wisdom from our 6 sources. And today we are going to hear a parable from Jesus directly from the New, what some people call the New Testament, the Christian scriptures. I read from the Message transliteration. So if the words don't line up with what you're used to. This is a newer paraphrasing of the Bible. And this parable is the parable of the sheep and the goats. And I want to say two things before I read it for you. In this, when Jesus is so Jesus is talking directly to his followers in this story, and he's addressing his followers. And when he refers to he's referring to his Father, e.g., God, right? Yahweh, the Jewish God. The other thing I'd like to say is the sheep are the good ones and the goats are the bad ones. And I don't know why the goats get the bad rap. I haven't done the research on that, but I've always questioned why the goats end up being the problem here. So, okay, here's the parable of the sheep and the goats. When he finally arrives, blazing in beauty and all his angels with him, the Son of Man will take his place on his glorious throne. Then all the nations will be arranged before him, and he will sort out the people, much like a shepherd sorts out sheep and goats, putting the sheep to his right and the goats to his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Enter, you who are blessed by my Father. Take what's coming to you in this kingdom. It's been ready for you since the world's foundation, and here's why. I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was homeless, and you gave me a room. I was shivering, and you gave me clothes. I was sick, and you stopped to visit. I was in prison, and you came to me." Then those sheep on his right are going to say, "Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you a drink? And when did we ever see you sick or in prison and come to you?" Then the king will say, "I'm telling you the solemn truth. Whenever you did this, whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, that was me. You did it to me." Then he turns to the goats, the ones on his left, and he says, "Get out, you worthless goats. You're good for nothing but the fires of hell. And why? I was hungry, and you gave me no meal. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was homeless, and you gave me no bed. I was shivering, and you gave me no clothes. Sick and in prison, and you never visited me." Then those goats are going to say, "Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry or thirsty or homeless or shivering or sick or in prison and not help you?" He will answer them, "I am telling you the solemn truth. Whenever you failed to do one of those things to someone who was being overlooked or ignored, that was me. You failed to do it to me. And then the goats will be herded to their eternal doom, but the sheep will enter their eternal reward." And now, with our chalices lit and our hearts and minds centered, we invite you to help us sing our first song, our first hymn. You may stand if you're comfortable, or you may stay seated, but please, standing or seated, help us by raising your voice with us. Our first hymn is called "The Fire of Commitment," and it is number 1028 in your teal hymnal.
Hunger and our passion meet to call us on our future can begin. From the dreams of youthful vision comes a new prophetic voice, which demands a deeper justice built by our courageous choice. When a fire of commitment sets our minds and souls ablaze, when our hunger and our passion meet to call us on our way, when we live with deep assurance of the flame that burns within, then our promise finds fulfillment and our future can begin.
Okay, we're going to have a story for all ages today. We haven't been doing them every Sunday, but we're going to do one today because I found this great little book. It's called What is a Refugee? And I love when you have a complex concept like refugee, many times if you can't explain it to an 8-year-old, you don't understand it. And you have to go back and do it again, right? So this explains it to an 8-year-old or even a younger person. So the book is, and there's all pictures of people, I don't know if you can see it, but a refugee is a person just like you and me. Refugees had to flee their country because they were in danger. I love that. So simple. Not economic, blah, 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 political, but they were in danger. Very easy to understand. Some of them had to flee because their country was at war. Some of them had to leave because powerful people didn't like what they thought or said or wanted to hurt them. Others had to leave because people didn't accept their religion or hated them because they were different. And here's someone throwing a rock. Most refugees would have preferred, and this is so important, most refugees would have preferred to stay in their country with their friends and family. But it was too dangerous, and often their homes were destroyed and they didn't have anything left. Refugees had to find another country to live in, and that's not easy. There are countries who don't want or welcome refugees. Interestingly, a razor wire fence is depicted. They were waiting for a new country to welcome them. Many refugees had to stay in camps where life was hard. Refugees were lucky if they could find a country where they could live a normal life and do normal things like go to school and make friends, work, live in peace and safety. Just like you and me. There's such an interesting depiction. And then in the back of the book, they have famous refugees. And I'm going to read them because I didn't know some of these people were refugees. Madeleine Albright, did you know that? Had to flee Czechoslovakia to escape the Nazis. Did not know that. Bob Marley had to flee Jamaica, that we know. And Malala Yousafzai, the woman from the articles. Albert Einstein had to flee Nazi Germany and come to New Jersey. Anne Frank, we know. Lol Dong, I didn't know. He had to leave South Sudan when he was 5, and I guess he's an all-star in the NBA. I didn't know that. And then I didn't know this. Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen, had to leave Zanzibar because of a revolution in Zanzibar. I did not know that. So it's interesting, all the people who slid into a new culture and a new world. So I just found this book very interesting and very clear of heart. And now I invite Jill to bring us into our offering.
Emerson collects an offering each week, like many other communities of faith, but our offering is not for our church, which is supported by the annual pledges of our members. We collect our Sunday offering to give to others because we know that giving is both transformative spiritual act and an important way to live our values. 75% of today's offering will go to September's Share the Plate recipient, the Women's Home. For almost 70 years, the Women's Home has been building communities that strengthen women and support families as they reclaim their stability. The Women's Home envisions a world in which every woman embraces her unique value and potential for a life filled with love, dignity, and purpose. The remaining 25% of today's offering will go to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. This has been a charity we have given to, for decades, so that support is ongoing. You can go to our webpage for online giving, put cash or a check in our offering plates, or mail a check to the church. And I introduce Artem for the offering music.
This is the part of our service where I invite you to relax, to come into contact with something greater than yourself, or to just feel yourself being present here in the room. I'm going to ask you today, because today we're talking about immigration, we're talking about refugees. It would be disingenuous for me to ask you to imagine yourself in a position of needing to leave your home that you don't want to leave. It would be disingenuous for me to ask you to do that, because we can't do that. We can't possibly imagine that. So I would ask you to just sit in solidarity with people who, coming into America or Canada or any other place on this big, mostly beautiful earth of ours, had to leave and doesn't know where they're going and doesn't know who they'll see or what the rules are when they get where they're going. I'd like you to just sit in solidarity with what these people are carrying around, if you can. Just don't imagine yourself in their shoes. you can't. But imagine what someone might be feeling in their heart when they're doing this. The joy mixed with the confusion, mixed with the fear, mixed with the pain, mixed with the excitement. See if you can feel that. Just a few moments.
May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be filled with loving kindness. May we be well. May we be peaceful and at ease. May we be
Going off script here for a moment, did any of you recognize in our offering, in our music, maybe it says by Paul Simon, America, that Artem played? Most of us are old enough to know that music. The words for our second reading today come from contemporary American award-winning author Tom McGuane. McGuane is probably best known for his 1973 novel, 92 in the Shade, which was made into a feature film, as were 4 of his other novels. Here are his thoughts about America, in which he compares America to an old pickup truck. America is like one of those old-fashioned 6-cylinder truck engines that can be missing 2 spark plugs and have a broken flywheel and have a crankshaft that's 5,000 millimeters off fitting properly and 2 bad ball bearings and still run. We're in that kind of situation. We can have substantial parts of the population committing suicide and still run and look fairly good.
I was going to go off script on the Paul Simon thing too, and just tell you, no, it's great. There's a stage show coming around about Simon and Garfunkel. I don't know if it's come here yet. If you get a chance to see it, go see it. It's very good. It's very good. We saw it somewhere. Where did we see it? Anyway, it was still good. No matter where we saw it, it was still good. Okay, so today we are talking about immigration, the thorny, yicky concept, idea of immigration. We're talking about this because I went on a border trip to witness the border, to witness what was going on. The border trip was organized by Texas Impact, a wonderful group that we joined. We're not a member of Texas Impact, but we're a member of Texas UGM. From Aaron from last week, Texas UGM is a member of Texas Impact. So that's how we got to Texas Impact. My colleague across town, Reverend Colin, he presented his reflection on the trip a few weeks ago, and he called his "See Through Eyes That Have Cried." And his message was a compassionate response. His message was modify the policy to be the great nation that we pretend to be. My response is different. And although I understand and respect his response of calling for a compassionate response and a compassionate fixing of the problem, my response was anger. My response was, why are we doing this? What's the point? Don't modify the program, throw it away. And I want to start out by just clarifying a couple things. First of all, I specifically called this "So You Want to Come to the U.S." I didn't use the word America, because if you're Mexican or Guatemalan or El Salvadoran or Venezuelan, guess what? You American. You already live in America. It is arrogant. It's kind of World Series arrogant, you know? Can't be the World Series if there's only American teams in it. It is arrogant, I think, to call it America. And you don't know this, but I struggle with the word America and American. I want to use the word United Statesan, which is what we actually are, but nobody would understand what I'm saying. So if I just all of a sudden start using that term, you know I'm trying to knock us down a notch. The other thing I want to clarify and specifically say up front is that the U.S. immigration policy has been absolutely politicized. It's been politicized on the right, it's been politicized on the left, and I will tell you something, you think you understand it, you don't. I went down there thinking I understood it. I did not. I used the wrong words. You're using the wrong words too. Not because you're trying to prove a point this way or the other, but because it is so complex that you can't, I'm honest to God, unless you try to get into the United States, you can't possibly understand it. The United States is one of the hardest countries to get into in the world. To live, you can come, but living here is very difficult. Immigrating here is very difficult. So all of this politicization has caused a bunch of lies to swirl around. So I want to just tell you what those lies are right now, in case you believe some of them, because I believe some of them. How was I to know? Here are some of the lies. When we think of the word illegal, what we picture, a lot of us, is someone who swam across the river, right? The truth is that most illegal people in the United States, and there are about 13 million of them here right now, that's the estimate. Of course, that's a silly thing to ask people to estimate. It's asking them to estimate the people they didn't see, so it's a wild guess, right? But they're estimating that there are about 13 million people here illegally. The vast majority of them entered the country perfectly legally on a visa and then just outstayed the visa. So the vast majority of them came in on an airplane or drove in or however they got here, and then they just stayed too long. So the notion that they're swimming across the Rio Grande because they're somehow violent criminals is not true. Most of them were screened prior to entry to get the visa to come here in the first place. One thing you have to understand as an American is you can go almost anywhere on a U.S. passport. The opposite is not true. Most countries require a passport, require a visa. Citizens of most countries require a visa to just come visit here. Okay? So you have to know that. Why? Why do people go for a visa, like a traveler visa or a visitor visa? Why do they do that? Well, because if you want to get an immigration visa, a family of 4 immigration visa costs about $2,000. And then you can't figure it out on your own, so you have to have a lawyer to help you figure it out, which is another $2,000. So a family of 4 to emigrate into the United States is about $4,000. Now let me put that in perspective for you. The per capita GPA of Texas is $86,000. And I think $4,000 is a lot of money. I don't know about you. It's a lot of money. And a lot of people just don't have $4,000 laying around. And we're Texans. We have an average per capita GPA. In other words, the average amount of money that most people make, that's the average in Texas, is $86,004. And $4,000 is a lot to us. The average per capita income in Mexico is $10,000 and $10,046. So now $4,000 just went from being a lot of money to being half, let's call it half, of your annual income. You try saving half of your annual income. And that's Mexico. They're relatively well off. Guatemala, Venezuela, and El Salvador all hover right around $5,000. So you're asking these people to follow our rules. You're asking them to save basically 1 year's worth of salary to apply for a visa that they might not get. You could spend the $4,000 to apply and be rejected. How are you supposed to do that if that's 1 times your annual salary? Imagine if you had to apply for $86,000 to maybe go somewhere. Would you do it? Or would you find a cheaper way to do it? A tourist visa is $185 and your kids don't have to apply. So a family of 4 can come here for $360 with almost no possibility of being rejected. So that's the truth about why people do what they do. Here's another truth. We think, or we're told anyway, I don't know that all of you believe this, that the people that are coming over here are thugs, murderers, rapists, and mentally ill. I don't know about you, and I know a lot of mentally ill people. That runs in my family. I'm going to guarantee you that they could not figure out how to get to wherever you think they're going on their own. The truth is that less than 1%, you're not going to believe, less than 1% of people deported from the United States were deported due to crime other than outstaying their visa. Virtually nobody is deported because they broke a law, except for outstaying their visa. It's a lie. Here's another lie. You've heard the term walking papers? They give them their walking papers when they hit the border. This means they're free to go, right? No, it does not. It means that there's legal permission for you to stay in the United States while you're awaiting a court date for an asylum hearing. The asylum hearings take a long time. There's a big backlog. So, you're allowed to even possibly get a job while you wait. All these people who are in a legal process are lumped into the illegal pile when we politicize this. Unless you think that this is a Republican problem or a conservative problem, let me give you another lie. Here's another lie. Immigration is better under Biden. No, it's not. It was until earlier this year, when it actually became harder to come into the United States than it was during the worst year of the Trump administration, which was the last year, which was when he was running for president. Actually, the immigration deportations declined every year during the Trump administration, and then they shot up in the last year because it was politicized. Here's another lie. The wall works. Have you ever seen the wall, folks? This is not a wall. It is a series of wall segments, often with football-sized gaps between them. I don't understand how you do this. If you're building a wall along the border, why do you build 100 feet and then stop, walk 200 feet, build another 100 feet, stop, walk 300 feet, build another 200 feet? From space, I think the wall looks like a giant Morse code, dot, dot, dash, dot, dot, dash, dot, dot, dash. It is inconceivable that the money that we're spending on this wall is of any use at all. We drove along it for 45 minutes, and that's the way it was the whole way. Here's another thing we think, that construction of the wall stopped under Biden. No, it didn't. Construction is still ongoing. 20 miles right now are being built. I don't know if they're dot, dot, dashing it. I don't know what they're doing. But 20 miles are still being built right now with your tax money. We're going to have a little quiz right now. Here's your little quiz. Under which president was the first section of the wall built? Any idea?
Obama.
No? Well, you got to go back a long time. Oh, no. Keep going. FDR. FDR was the first person who said, I think we need a wall. So, folks, this wall issue that we're talking about and immigration in general is a bipartisan problem. Can you feel my anger? Hang on, it gets better. So here's another lie that we think. We think unskilled migrants take U.S. jobs, right? Now, I know, because this is one thing that I learned big time on this trip. I know a lot of you are thinking, no, they don't. Let me prove to you how unskilled labor and the immigration process in the United States actually does take U.S. jobs. Okay? I want you to imagine, because this is actually true. Let's say you own a chicken processing plant, and I specifically chose chicken processing plants because they almost always are full of undocumented workers. You employ dozens of undocumented workers in your chicken processing plant, and those undocumented workers start talking to other people here, and they start to learn about things like paid time off, workers' compensation. Now, I'm not talking about health insurance, just talking about workers' compensation. Unemployment, Social Security. They learn about all these things that you and I take for granted, and what do they start doing? They start complaining. I want some of this stuff too, right? One call to ICE, and they're all gone. ICE is the best union buster ever developed. So if you think ICE is helping, it's helping all right. It is helping the people who don't want unions in workplaces. It is dissolving the middle class. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, union membership in the United States is down 50% since 1985, which was the first year they kept track. 50%. So God knows what it was in the 20s and 30s when at the height of unions. So unions are down 50%, and 2 meatpacking unions have just completely folded and gone away. ICE is the world's best union buster because ICE only cares about the immigrants. They don't care about the business who hired the immigrants. That's not their thing. So they swoop out and move on. So while we're talking about unskilled labor, my neighbor down the street, who I don't know, and I don't want to know based on the signs out front of his house. My neighbor has a sign out front of his house, and it says, "What country has open borders?" So I checked it out. What country does have open borders? Well, it turns out he's partially right. There are no countries right now that have open borders. But to understand what having an open border means, you have to understand how immigration works. And there was a lot of research about this. And what they do is they analyze each country's immigration policy, and they assign them a number from -5 to +5, okay? -5 is overt hostility, legal and cultural hostility to immigrants. +5 is actively recruiting for people to come live in your country, right? The United States, for years and years and years, hundreds of years, was a 0. No real policy, no real recruiting, you could just come. And I know this is true because my family has recently immigrated to the United States. And the one notable thing about talking to my family about how they immigrated to the United States, the one notable thing is listening to their stories about dealing with immigration. And what's notable about them is they don't have any stories about dealing with immigration. They just came here. Like if you ask, they're all dead now, but if you ask some of my old relatives how they got here, they'll say, "Oh, I took a bus." That was it. You came, you worked, and eventually people forgot that you didn't have papers. That's just the way it worked. So we went from being a 0 until recently, and I say recently. So after the Civil War, a little bit changed, it got a little tighter, but then around World War II is when most countries started with immigration policies. So it was only at World War II that countries started with immigration policies, and America tightened up. Both Canada and the United States went from a 0 to a -3, according to these people who measure this stuff. And why did they do that? Keep the Asians out. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay? Here's the difference. Canada went back to a 0 after World War II. The U.S. did not. The U.S. liked immigration policy. So I did find a whole list of countries who were looking for unskilled labor. I found a whole list of countries. Do you want to know what the top 5 countries in the world are who are actively looking for unskilled labor? Germany, Portugal, Spain, the United Kingdom, and can you guess the 5th one? The United States is actively looking for unskilled labor. We have a new visa called the EW3 visa that is $190 and includes your whole family. But we only accept 10,000 people a year. So we are so absolutely conflicted. And why? It makes no sense. According to the US Census, we are going to start shrinking as a nation in the year 2080. And yet, we still have the faucet turned off. So can you feel my anger? Maybe it's frustration, maybe it's anger. So let me summarize what we have so far. We need more workers, but we're not letting them in. Our population is projected to shrink, but we're building more walls. And all of this is not free, folks, right? The U.S. spends $21 billion per year to patrol the borders. And some of you may be wondering, did he say billion with a B? Yes, he said billion with a B. $21 billion. Texas, in addition to the 21, Texas spent $11 billion in 2023 to build a floating razor wire fence, despite having no authority to do so. And Governor Abbott came out 2-3 days ago and said that he's proud that it's working. Yes, it is working. People are going around Texas and entering through California. Problem solved. Immigration has not changed. They're just not coming through Texas anymore. And it's not because they were cutting through. Even the people who were entering at the checkpoints are not coming here anymore. I think maybe razor wire fence might have turned them off. So let's talk about money a little more. One thing that we learned from the Border Patrol is that they were very excited to tell you that they had stopped 176 people on the no-fly list. They apprehended 176 people on the no-fly list. Now, they were very specific to say people on the no-fly list. They were very specific to not say terrorist. Why? Because if there's a terrorist named Ed Prue, which I doubt, but if there's a terrorist named Ed Prue, and I try to get through a border, I'm going to pop up as a person whose name is on the no-fly list. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to say that all 176 of them were actually terrorists. So let's just say that they really did intercept 176 real bad guys trying to enter the country. I can see some of your minds reeling on the math, and I've done the math for you here. $11 billion divided by 176 bad guys is $62.5 million each. We spent $62.5 million each to intercept 176 people who may or may not have been terrorists. Apparently, we've fixed all the problems. The roads are fine. The schools are fine. We're just now focused on these 176 bad guys. So take all of that, pile it into something, and I'm going to tell you now what I was feeling when I was standing at the border. What I was feeling was, why are we doing this? What is the point of doing this? Canada and the United States followed the same immigration path. We were both neutral. You could come, you could not come, doesn't matter. They didn't recruit, but you could come. And we followed the same path until World War II. Canada went back, the US did not. Here's my question. Are we better for not having gone back to just, I'm not saying open borders, ask a few questions, but you want to keep people who are really bad guys out, but how many questions do you really need to ask? Do we really need to have people have to hire a lawyer to get in here? How many lives have been ruined by this process? How many families have been ruined by this process? There's a one regulation that I found out was there's called something unaccompanied minors. Unaccompanied minors is very simple, right? You think of little babies wandering across the border. That's not at all what it is. Unaccompanied minors is anybody under the age of 17 is allowed in, right? So what do families do? They break up at the border to make sure that at least one of them gets in. Because the unaccompanied minor passes through a whole separate process that involves the foster care system, which we know is just great in this country. But that's where they're coming from. They'd rather be in the foster care system than where they came from. The one thing I've learned for absolute sure is no one is asking why we're doing this. I wasn't even asking why we were doing this. I was tinkering with the program. What if we did this? What if we did that? What if we did this? What I'm saying to you now is, are we getting any benefit from doing this? $21 billion a year. $21 billion. Let me put that in perspective for you. $21 billion, not including the wall. That's on a separate budget, not including the wall. $21 billion is more than we spend on the National Science Foundation, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation. We're all worried about giving money to foreign countries. Yeah, not worried. The Nuclear Regulatory Commission, I personally think that's important. The Government Accountability Office, which after you get done laughing, that is actually a thing. I didn't know. the Government Accountability Office, National Archives and Records Administration, and the entire federal judicial branch. We spend more on border control than all those things combined. The U.S. spends more money on border control than it does to, I'm a pension guy, I ran pensions for my whole career prior to coming to ministry. They spend more money to control the border than they do to guarantee failed private pensions that throw families into turmoil. Is anyone here asking if this is working? The truth is, the only truth I can come up with is we don't care. We don't care if it's working. If it really is security theater, which it certainly feels like, only the poor, mostly black and brown families are affected. It's all right. And I can't help but have what rattles around in my head. It irks me to hear people say that we are a Christian nation. And I would beg you to stop pushing back on that. Let them be a Christian nation. We are a Christian nation. Yes, we are, because Christians have a poor track record about thinking about someone else. They always have. Maybe that's why Jesus sat them down and said, now I want you to listen to me. The ones on the left, get out. Because I was hungry, and you gave me no meal. I was thirsty, and you gave me no drink. I was homeless, and you gave me no bed. I was shivering, and you gave me no clothes. And I was sick and in prison, and you never visited me. If that wasn't happening, Jesus would not have had to have tell people that. He wouldn't have had to have reviewed that with them. So he obviously felt compelled to review that with him. So I am angry, and this is coming from a position of anger, from a position of frustration, and I'm going to say this, and I'm going to regret it, but I'm going to say it. Just this once, I hope hell is real. I invite you now to, because we're going to sing a song now, so this is a weird transition from that into a song, but we're going to sing a song. It's just, take a breath, and when you're ready, you can rise, or you can stay seated, whatever it is you want to do, but help us sing our closing hymn, which is all creatures, all of them, all creatures of the earth and sky.
All creatures of the earth and sky, come, kindred, lift your voices high. Alleluia, alleluia. Bright bird
My friends, it's now time for us to extinguish our chalice. Before we do that, I'd just like to quickly mention that they're going to be running more tours. And I would engage all of you if you want to go. I know a guy. I can get you in. It's a wonderful tour. And just, you stay in like a Fairfield Inn or something. It's not like, you don't imagine, And Brownsville's kind of a nice town. So we'd like to have you on that tour as soon as you're ready. I would strongly advise not going in August. Oh, it was hot. We extinguish this chalice now, not as a symbolic ritual, but as a practical ritual. We do this because the flickering, fluttering light of this congregation and its love for the world it is in carries us within each of us here present, those not present today, those who left this community long ago, never to return, and those who have yet to arrive. We are so grateful for you this morning. I invite Mackenzie to extinguish our chalice. Thank you very much. We are so grateful for all of you who joined us on Facebook, on YouTube. We love you, and we're happy you were able to be here with us. And I invite you now to rest and be well and have a wonderful Labor Day weekend. And now I invite us to hear our recessional.